Thank you so much for the 1,000 subscribers. It is insane that there's so many of you. Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Neetu and I'm an English student at Oxford University. So today I'm going to be talking about my journey to Oxford. I looked for a lot of videos like this when I was applying or started considering applying, and I didn't really know where to start. So yeah, I'm going to kind of map out my journey from East London to Oxford, and it should be fun. Right, let's get into it. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is kind of why Oxford and whether or not it was a good decision to end up there, and what kind of person it kind of takes to be at somewhere like Oxford. So I don't mean it in the sense that you need to be particularly amazing to be at Oxford, but I think it's just more so that Oxford's a very academic place, and I do talk about that a lot in my videos. You need to really love academics, and I think something that I recognised in myself. I don't know why there's loads of cars once again making noise, and it's just annoying, but yeah, whatever. One thing that I've always kind of known about myself is that I have always been very academic. I loved school, I loved doing homework, I loved going to school, I loved my classes. I always participated in class. I always, you know, if I had questions about things, I would always talk about these things with my teachers, with my classmates. And yeah, it was such a fun time, and I knew that I wanted to go somewhere where I would feel academically challenged, and I wanted to go somewhere where I would be able to have this kind of, where I would be able to have fun in the way that I did academically in school. For a long time, I considered to do fashion because I did GCSE textiles and I did AS textiles. I was thinking to go to UAL, which is the University of Arts London, or I don't know how to say it, or LCF, which is London College of Fashion. And at the end of year 12, I did a few summer schools with LCF, so London College of Fashion, and also did a lot of academic programs as well, like K+ with King's College, some of the stuff that I did with Oxford, specifically with Pembroke College. So I was kind of doing both in one summer and trying to figure out which direction I want to go in. I was wondering, should I do maybe a foundation year in fashion and then I can go on to do academics, or should I just scrap academics altogether and only do fashion, or should I forget about fashion and just do academics? And it turns out that so far I have kind of forgotten about fashion and I'm just doing academics at the moment. The creativity is still there. I still do a lot of creative stuff, but just not in the way that I expected. So it was crazy. I probably could have been at University of Arts London, and I probably would have been living at home and having a very, very different life to what I have had so far in the last year and a half at Oxford. So it's nuts that I was thinking to do that. But what changed my mind is going on those summer schools, doing the fashion summer schools. I didn't feel challenged, and I didn't feel like it was an environment that would particularly, I don't know, nurture me and nurture me in the way that I wanted. I wanted to learn a lot in a short amount of time, and I've always been like that. I've always been keen to learn. I'm very curious, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of Oxford people have in common. That and a few other things quite problematic, but yeah. After going to those summer schools, I realised this is not the thing for me. I don't feel challenged, I don't feel stimulated, I actually feel quite bored. So I turned to my academics and just continued focusing on that. So in that summer, at the end of year 12, I did the Oxford summer school and I loved it. It was wicked. I wrote an essay and the essay banged, and then I won an award for it, and I really, really enjoyed it. The people I met there, some of my closest friend at uni, one of my closest friends right now, is a girl that I met there. Being in Oxford, being in Pembroke, it felt real for the first time. Like I could actually belong there, I could actually live there, enjoy it, make friends there, study there. Like that could be my world if I wanted it to. And like all of that kind of reminded me that yeah, I should apply and I can apply. Obviously, you know, some people have that thinking stage a lot earlier on because of a range of factors, maybe because their parents, because of families, teachers, or maybe just from themselves. They know that Oxford is the place or Cambridge is the place they want to go. But I think for me that came quite later on. It happened in year 12. And I think again it's to do a lot with not realising my potential maybe at the time. And I think after going to that summer school and realising that, you know, these academic tutors at this big fat, you know, special magical university were recognising that my essay was somewhat good and worthy enough, you know, to be like star pupil of the week and all that stuff. Like it really did build my confidence. So yeah, that's when I decided, yep, I want to go to Oxford. That is the place I want to go. I also visited Cambridge just to see the city, to see the colleges, and I just found it dead. And I've said this in other videos as well. And this isn't me like hating on Cambridge at all, but it's just as a city, it's not even a city, I think it's more like a village. It was just boring and just I didn't like it. Coming from a very, very busy part of a very, very busy city, I just didn't think I could live somewhere where it felt like there was no one around and it was just quiet and just dead. I think Oxford is a lot busier, and I quite like that about it. And obviously because I had done the summer school there and I'd actually lived there and eaten there and like survived there, I felt like maybe this is the place for me. And it felt a bit more homely as well. So yeah, I went for Oxford, and then I spent the rest of my summer reading, and not reading because I was like, oh my god, I've got a personal statement to do. Obviously that was at the back of my mind, but I read for pleasure. I read books that I liked, and a lot of it just wasn't the stereotypical, I don't know, Shakespeare, Chaucer. And again, I say this in a lot of videos because I think it's important. I think at that stage you think, oh mad, I'm applying to Oxford for English, I need to do what's right. And what's right is, you know, reading texts within the canon, and I say this all with like inverted, with speech marks, or rabbit ears, I don't know, speech marks, because there is no right canon. Obviously there are texts that you will study there when you get there, but we assume that there's a right type of text and a wrong type of text, but that's not necessarily true. So I just read what I enjoyed. Reading for pleasure, watching stuff for that sounded, I was going to say watching stuff for pleasure, and then I was like, that sounds so wrong. I shouldn't say that on my channel. Right, so I was reading stuff, watching stuff, things that I was engaged with, material that I thought would be useful for the personal statement, but also just stuff I enjoyed in general. So then I started kind of writing up a few ideas, and by September, so by the start of year 13, I kind of started writing up a first draft, and it was so bad, it was so forced. I was talking about lullabies, it was just nonsense. And you will get to a point when you're writing a personal statement, especially if you're a humanities student and you're particularly moist, that anything you talk about, you're like, oh yeah, I could fit this into my personal statement, or everything will fit into my, and it just doesn't make sense. 11 or 12 drafts later, I'm done, and then I'm focusing on the ELAT, which is the English Language Admissions Test, or maybe English Literature Admissions Test, I don't know, but it's the entrance exam for English at Oxford. From what I remember, it was an hour long, and there were a bunch of questions, about 20 questions, you pick one, and you write an essay on it. And the only way that you can truly prepare for it is not content-wise, but more so skills-wise, and that's the point of it. You can prove to them the skill set that you have when it comes to English. Not that English requires many skills anyway. You can't really prepare for the ELAT, or for, I guess, admissions tests in general, content-wise, but you can prepare for it skills-wise. So I did a few, I think 2 or 3 practice papers before the exam, and I did a few essay plans. So I didn't even necessarily write the whole like exam out. I just did a few essay plans on how would I approach this question, and I did that with one of my teachers, and it was a really useful exercise. I would say the best thing to do for the ELAT is to learn like literary techniques, learning more complicated ones, trying to recognize what kind of poems exist. So looking at, and I think it was a poem that I had to analyze. So looking at, is it a sonnet? Is it in iambic pentameter? Is it blazon poetry? Is it a lyric? Like, what is it? So looking at that, knowing things like what a quatrain is as opposed to a tercet, a rhyming couplet, what rhyme royale or rhyme royal, then I'd say it was, stuff like that. Looking at kind of how poetry evolves, looking at poetic techniques, that would be useful. Not necessarily like memorizing A-level content, because that stuff isn't in the exams at all. It's just literally random poetry, and they just want to see how your brain works when it comes to approaching new poetry. So again, they just want to see your skills. So I'm getting really close to the camera. So the next step was interviews, and when I found out I had gotten the interview, I was like, this is mad. I was really nervous because I knew that you have to stay in Oxford for like 2 or 3 days, and I had 2 interviews, and again, I can make a whole other video on the interview process, but the main thing I would say is, you know, the reason why I think I got in was because I was very open about not understanding parts of the poem that they showed me. So I had one interview where I just talked about my personal statement for about 15 minutes, and talked about things I liked and didn't like in literature. It was very, very general and very chatty, actually. It was very informal. And then in the second interview, I had about half an hour I was given a poem, I was given about half an hour or 20 minutes to look at it, analyse it, and then go back to these 2 tutors and talk to them about what I think about the poem. And I literally got it all wrong, and yeah, I just interpreted it so badly, and it wasn't because I was nervous or anything, because I think when it comes to interviews and talking to people, that's actually one thing I'm quite good at. It was actually just because I think I was overcomplicating it, just be honest about things you don't understand. Like, there were words in the poem that I just did not know, and I just said to her, look, I don't know what this is. And she was like, just guess. And then we worked around it, and showing that kind of grit and determination, I think, was maybe, and I don't know, I've never asked my tutor actually till date, was maybe what got me to Oxford. I think it was, you know, being honest about the things that we don't know rather than trying to show off about the things that we do know. Maybe that humility, I think, is something that's important to convey when it comes to that interview stage. So yeah, I had the interview, then I got the offer in January, and it was mad because everyone was getting their offers and we were all like, people like celebrating. But I remember I went to the common room and I went up to my best friend and I was smiling and I was like, Nevros. And then I was like, yeah, I got in. And then Nevros started screaming or jumping or hugging me, and then everyone else in the common room saw her jumping and screaming, and they obviously knew they knew that it was probably because I got in. And then there was like a huge crowd and we were all hugging each other and they were screaming. They're like, Nadu! I don't know, man. I was proud of myself and stuff, but I felt like they were proud of me as well, because it was a nice moment, because we all knew that, you know, all the people who had applied had worked so hard, like so hard, and people saw us like sitting and working for hours and hours after school had ended, coming to school early, using up our break times and our lunch times to pattern work, to pattern things for the application. If you can hear coughing, it's my family in the background. Again, quarantine, can't do anything about it. So yeah, seeing that was really, like, it was really moving, and I remember it till now, and it was so sweet, man. It was so sweet. And then after the offer, obviously the final thing is making the grades, and obviously it's stressful, there's a lot of pressure, but I think the only thing I had in my mind wasn't necessarily that my offer is AAA. I kind of forgot that Oxford even existed for those few months, to be quite honest. I didn't think about achieving my grades for the sake of Oxford. I thought about achieving my grades for the sake of myself. Oxford required AAA, but I wanted to get A star, and that was something that was always on my mind. So the thing I would kind of say about that space between receiving your offer and preparing for your exams and getting the grades, like, that space can be stressful if you allow it to be stressful. Obviously it's easier said than done, and I do recognise that, but I do think there are, just to kind of forget that the whole university thing exists, it's kind of through organising your time and being disciplined and creating timetables. One thing that I find really useful is having a timer when I study. So say having like a 45-minute session, taking a 5-minute break, another 45 minutes, and then having a timer, you keep disciplined, and also you end up getting a lot more done because you're efficient. You know you got to work to a certain time limit, and that's how it is in school. Like, teachers will give us, especially in English, I remember this, especially at GCSE, teachers would give us like a 2-minute timer, do this, then 1-minute timer, do this, then after 5 minutes do this. You have 15 minutes to write the first 2 paragraphs or whatever. Like, having timers are really, really efficient, and that's something that I definitely started in year 13. So what's the final thing? The final thing, yeah, that I got in. And yeah, I mean, first term of first year is always scary, and at any university, any new experience, any first few days, first few weeks at a new place doing a new thing is terrifying, and it was. But it's been 1.5 years now, or over 1.5 years, maybe nearly 2 years now. Will it be? No. It's been 1.5 years, and yeah, it's been a roller coaster, but it's been good. I've learned a lot, and not just in the academic sense, but in an overall kind of growing, maturing sense as well. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas for more videos, please let me know. Please like, please comment, please subscribe, please share. Please let your friends and family know that this YouTube channel exists. And thank you so much for the 1,000 subscribers. It is insane that there's so many of you, and that we're forming a little community of our own. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys. I need to stop doing this. Okay, bye guys.